Why did NASA release water into ionosphere? In the 1960s, when space and science were still in its early stages, National Aeronautics and Space Administration or NASA decided to launch its Saturn I rocket to test the results of what happens if the water was to release in the Earth's ionosphere. As there were no computer simulation and models available during that period, NASA decided to conduct the project. Project Highwater, as it was named by NASA, was a test conducted with 2 test flights that were originally launched to test the integrity of the rockets. Since rockets have different stages, like Saturn I had 5 stages, only the first stage was being actually used to test integrity. The question remained, what to do with the other stages? NASA decided to load a hefty load of water as ballast on Saturn I, which was launched from Cape Canaveral, Florida, into its suborbital trajectory. The project was aimed at testing the effects of fault or damage to the rocket in case of diffusion of propellant, and what would happen if the rocket carrying a large amount of propellant destroys at high altitude. NASA launched its first test flight on Saturn. SA-2 was launched on April 25, 1962. After reaching the projected height, the first stage was shut down, and then the explosives were set off on the upper stages, that is Stage 2 and Stage 3, carrying a load of 109,000 liters, 30,000 US gallons, of water as ballast, weighing around 95 tons. As the test flight was successful, NASA launched its second flight, SA-3, on November 16, 1962. With 23,000 US gallons of water as the previous flight, to check the data collected from the first test flight. The dummy stages were set off at a height of 104 miles of altitude. As a result, huge clouds stretching up to 5 miles were formed, which eventually disturbed radio frequencies and telemetry across the region for a short time. According to the reports available on NASA, both SA-2 and SA-3, which were part of Project Highwater and Apollo mission, were successful. The test was being conducted to study the effects on radio transmission and changes in local weather conditions. The SA-2 exploded at an altitude of 150 kilometers, which took just 5 seconds to rupture both S4 and SV tanks. As a result, clouds of several kilometers in diameter were formed. The first test flight landed back on April 25, 1962. After the first successful attempt, SA-3 was launched under Project Highwater, carrying 30,000 US gallons of water on its Stage 4 and Stage V tanks, also known as battleships, in order to study the effects on radio transmission and changes in local weather conditions. The flight successfully landed on November 16, 1962. In the Atlantic Ocean. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more.